Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith.
And I'm Augusto Pinaud.
And we're your hosts for Anything But Idle. This is episode 79079 for September 13th. 2021. This is all about Google's upgrades to their systems with rooms, spaces, and workspace, and more. And of course, the productivity and technology related news of the week. And so, of course, each week we bring you the productivity and technology news headlines of the week. And so we are going to head into our stories of the week. Gusto, what's our first headline this week?
So calendar will break down how much of your work is spent into meetings. And I might say this is Google following Microsoft. Microsoft began doing this. I don't remember. We reported here in Anything But Idle when you start getting, how many hours are you getting into meetings? How many is focus time? 101. What I see that they are claiming in here that I don't recall the Microsoft option do it is it's even giving a breakdown when these meetings are one-to-one, 3 or more people are out of the office. And I'm guessing to give you these 3 or more people, you need to do them through Meet. This is an educated guess, but that is really interesting. How many of these meetings are really one-to-one versus group meetings and being able to get this versus the other things you have in your calendar. So I think it's really interesting how Microsoft and Google are trying to give you this. Not that people don't know already that they're in way too many meetings, but at least get a little more analysis on how much of this time it's really into meetings. And hopefully that will bring a better understanding for people of how to balance this.
Yeah, I think you're giving Google a little bit more credit than than they deserve here. I don't believe that they're actually analyzing Google Meet meetings. I think it's literally just looking at the RSVP list and identifying based on the RSVP list how many people are in any given meeting. I would be floored. I would love it if they were actually analyzing Google Meet meetings. I think that Microsoft Viva Insights is far more built out than the current Google environment here, but I'm looking forward to seeing what Time Insights. I've been using various Chrome extensions for several years, seeing all of the data that Google collects and provides to me about this. So I'm very curious to see how much of this will actually be useful going forward and how it matches up with my data. Right, I'm a data tracker, so I like as a quantified selfer, I like tracking all that data about myself, and so seeing the comparison between them is going to be really interesting. All told. All right, on to our next story this week.
Our next article, it's a long article from Fast Company, fantastic read. It's called Productivity Metrics Aren't Useful Any Longer. Here's a better way to get it done. And it starts with a story that it made me laugh, because I have experienced a version of this story many years ago. And the story is a manager who said, okay, people, we are behind. So now you guys need to work on Saturdays. And this manager drive to the parking lot and count the number of vehicles. Oh, people's vehicles are there. People is coming to the office. And then what start happening is people start leaving the car on Friday and come back to the office and pick it up on Monday. And I have seen a version of this, okay, in my early work as a salesman. The measurement was the calls, but never the duration of the calls. So you were in trouble because if you did X amount of calls, you get in trouble regardless of the amount of time you were on the phone. So what people started doing was exactly that. People were dialing and hang up, so they get to the numbers, and then they continue doing the quality calls they were doing before. So and the part with that is, well, be careful. The lesson is be careful what you're measuring, because if you're measuring the wrong thing, you're going to get the wrong results. So you need to pay attention what you're measuring. So
yeah, I think there was an interesting piece to this article. One is that the author, I think, mistakenly notes here that we should be measuring outcomes over outputs, and that very much depends upon the business. Absolutely, in a knowledge-based or knowledge worker environment, we should certainly be paying attention to outcomes more often than outputs, but not always. In a retail environment or a manufacturing environment, the output is really important. You need to know how
It's
many
key.
widgets were created, how many widgets were sold. So I don't think that we should be using qualitative over quantitative. We should be looking at both, and we should be understanding those as both businesses, but also as individuals. I think there's also a conflation here over the term productivity. We should consistently remember that personal productivity is very different than labor productivity and business productivity. So when we think about this from an individual level, we will want to measure, for example, lead indicators, but we will also want to measure lag indicators for certain parts of our lives as well. So this, it kind of is like we're dumping on this article specifically kind of dumps on productivity as being somewhat of a cult of productivity. But the reality is that what it's failing to do is understanding nuance about a topic which they're talking about people misunderstanding nuance. So we should really be making sure that we're paying very, very close attention to this, especially for an article focused on leaders. Leaders need to understand nuance, and we need to also understand that there are some ways in which we misunderstand metrics and misunderstand creating goals for people, and so on and so forth. But goal orientation is not going to be somehow dramatically transformative if we then don't understand that there are some metrics that we do need to understand about people. Like hours people are working are not necessarily a useful indicator all the time, but they can potentially be a very useful indicator some of the time. And so don't start throwing things away just because you think that somehow identifying only outcomes are going to be the thing. And me, Augusto, I've been on this bandwagon for years for outcomes approached measurements. So
but it's important. But you make a real important point that I see it also, and it's who you are. What is the piece of the business that you're analyzing? There are pieces that, yes, the outcome doesn't count. There are pieces that the outcome is exactly what is important. You said retail production, but also there is that middle. And one of the things I found in articles that this is miss that point. It is not black and white. It is black and white, but there is also grays in the middle, because as you look into the business, you need the three measurements because they're part of the business. That's true. That doesn't matter. If you are the IT guy, it doesn't matter how many widgets that machine is producing, unless that you are controlling that machine. That is true. But there are other levels in other places and other people inside of that organization that is not one or the other. It gets to be a combination of them. So you really make a balance into that.
absolutely. All right, onward to our next story this week, a study out of Microsoft, well, not out of Microsoft, but basically about Microsoft employees. And before you kind of lead us up here, Augusto, I will note that the title of the article says, study of Microsoft employees shows how remote work puts productivity and innovation at risk. And this just goes to show how poorly these headlines can really shed light or color particular things, and it just shows opinion too much. And so this is really important for us to understand that this is a colorable statement just as a headline, considering that when you look at the study itself, it's a 14-page study produced by Nature about human behavior, and it's called "The Effects of Remote Work on Collaboration Among Information Workers." And there are good and bad components about remote work that have been identified in this report. But for the title of the article to say that it puts productivity and innovation at risk misses the point of the study. And it really, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of these kinds of clear opinions being, kind of put into these articles.
And the sad part for me in this article is that they're picking on Microsoft, who has been exactly the opposite of what they're criticizing on the article. Because I have never been a fan of Microsoft, okay? And I have never been their defender. But in this case, I'm going to defend it. During this months of pandemic, Microsoft has been trying to the best of what they can be to be on the lead of that, to change their tools, to make Teams really a strong tool for this pandemic environment, post-pandemic environment, mixed environment, whatever it is that we come. And they have been really working into putting there. Even they were the first ones who came when the Delta variant came saying, hey, we are not even going to have this conversation until we can have this conversation. For now, we're going to continue. But then they are quoting Microsoft. So again, as you said, there is a lot of misquotes on the article and stuff. But the study is what is interesting, in my opinion.
Well, and the flip side to this is that Microsoft has released quite a few pieces of these studies that have been done recently. And so on one side, with Microsoft and LinkedIn, they're talking about the very positives that have come out of this particular, period of remote and hybrid work and figuring out these components. And in this particular study, what was interesting in the study is that they really dived into the data around the survey of the Microsoft employees, and you could see that there's mixed sentiment. And of course, there's always going to be mixed sentiment among people. You can't get people to agree on anything universally. And so, like the idea that somehow this bodes poorly for innovation or productivity is purely an issue of good management and good leadership. With an infrastructure of technology that allows for these things to happen. And so I find it to be kind of, interesting. I think hopefully post-pandemic, we will have a post-pandemic life where we will then be able to do that kind of Monday morning quarterbacking and see what worked, what didn't work. In light of that, I think we're all doing a really, important level of work here, because the work we do today will be judged for the future of remote work tomorrow. And so it kind of bodes well for us all to do well in this environment. Not everybody agrees with me on that, but the idea here is that we're being looked at and judged for purposes of what will be done in the future. And because of that, it's important for us to understand that this is a period where people are going through a great deal of strife. There's a lot of uncertainty, and there is a lot of stress, and that all of those things diminish productivity and innovation across the board. And yet companies continue to operate. Things have not churned to a halt. If it weren't for the Delta variant, the economies, at least in the United States, the economy has roared back into full throttle because of pent up demand. So the idea that somehow productivity and innovation are impacted negatively by virtue of remote work, I think is a bit of a red herring, and I think we all need to recognize that. But I'm also curious to see on the flip side of this, what parts of our economy, what types of workers are impacted negatively by remote work, and which ones are facilitated into thriving by virtue of remote work. And we should be flexible and dynamic in the face of all of those things. So I just don't like the idea that we're seeing such people who are choosing sides so quickly without understanding that, again, going back to your note earlier, there are shades of gray in all of this. And so, we have to recognize that not everyone is going to benefit from everything that we do. All right. On to our next. Are we on to the next story? Or
no, we are. Our next is our sponsor for this week. That is
right.
Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club.
We will see you after the break.
While working in person may be normal for you, it's unlikely your coworkers are as interested in being productive as you are. Or working remotely or from home can be isolating. And there's something powerful about being with productive people, even virtually, that helps you be more engaged. If a flavor of these sounds familiar, Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club is for you. Co-working Space is a virtual work community designed to help members be more effective and efficient in their work and personal lives. At its core, we provide goal tracking and host focused action sessions throughout the week for accountability and camaraderie. Visit anythingbutidle.com/coworking to learn more. Co-working Space lives inside Personal Productivity Club, a digital community for personal productivity enthusiasts, so you can find people who use methods and tools you do too. Again, head over to anythingbutidle.com/coworking to see how Co-working Space can help you be more productive. And now, back to our show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Anything But Idle. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith, joined here with Augusto Pinaud for the second half of Anything But Idle. And so on to our technology stories this week. What is our first tech story this week,
Well,
Augusto?
our first tech story is just to make your life difficult. And we are going to be talking about the Framework laptop. And it is shipping. And they are right now working, the machines. Let me start with what is a Framework laptop. Framework laptop is a project that is allowing you to really work and customize your laptop, make it upgradable by above average user probably, but by a user. Okay, one of the things with many laptops today is you can't touch them. Okay, you can upgrade them. You want to put more memory and the solder on the board. You can't do anything with this. So this laptop, it's trying to be a fully configurable machine where you can come and change the pieces and upgrade the pieces and change the processor later on. So you will be able to have this laptop for a really long time. What impressed me about it, aside of the fact that you can build all that, is the fact that price wise was not unreasonable. It was actually pretty reasonable. I mean, I went and built one Intel i5 with 16 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, nothing, but it was a $1,200 machine. Not much difference to what a Dell or an HP is going to cost me. So I hope this is the future for this. I know it's not, but I will love to be able to have this, to be able to build a machine that you can upgrade. The reality is right now that can change, but right now our processors continue being fast and much faster than what we go with software and what our needs are. I have in my office the iPad Pro, the first generation of the 12.9, and it's still a fully capable machine. It's still a machine that works great. So why it will be great if I could flip that thing open and upgrade the memory RAM. Then I will continue keeping the processors still good. It's the RAM on that machine that is now showing that the machine has 5 years. But it will be great to be able to have that. And legislation is going that way. Europe is trying to get us to the right of repair, and the right of repair will open the doors to things like this. So I am in particular excited about it.
Yeah, I think you're right on point here. I mean, that was the only commentary I was going to make, is that we are moving in that direction from a legislative perspective, and it seems as though this company is ahead of the curve in essence with this Framework laptop. I think when we first reported on it and its first unveiling, I was excited about it then as I am about it now, and I look forward to seeing it in the wild and seeing what it does. And I think it just makes sense for us to be able to keep devices in service for as long as possible, and things like Cloud Ready and other things just keep the electronics out of the trash piles, and that means keeping it out of landfills equates to a better environment. It creates longevity with those devices, and it's also less expensive for if you have a few kids in the household and you're trying to afford a family. Buying all of these computers all of the time is really expensive, and it doesn't mean that the manufacturers are not going to be able to make money. You're going to buy the expansion slots and you're going to buy the upgraded hardware and so on and so forth, but at least you're not having to buy a whole new device when just one component is no longer the best in class. So I like this. All right, on to our next story.
Well, Lenovo is rebooting the Chromebook Duet, and we both got the Duet, the small Duet at least, and they are now coming with a 13.3 screen. It's a little bit more expensive given, but it's the size of a laptop, and I really like mine. I like the Duet. I use it consistently. It's the machine for when I do record this show and many of the shows. Because it's what is centered in there and allows me to, doesn't matter what software Ray throw at me, I can. That the reality is the iPad doesn't do some of those things. So I needed to find a different solution. So, but I'm excited. It's a $430. It's not going to be, it's still on the budget side for a fully machine that can really be a solution. I was not really familiar to the Chromebook more than what we did with the exercise we did with that old Surface that we have shared in the show that we install Neverwhere. Now that we have this is really, or that I got the Duet, this is really getting it to the next level, and I'm really enjoying it. It will make me go out of my iOS? No, but it's still, it will now allows me to recommend people you can get devices like this and get a really solid solution.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this new Duet, the 13.3-inch version. I'm a little bit I'm a little bit hesitant because I don't want to buy any more devices, but I am enticed to have the larger screen. I think that's the only thing that I particularly dislike about the Duet. It's like the thing I like about it and the thing I don't like about it, right? Is because it's small, it's portable, it's very easy to work with, and I really like the Duet for that reason. But at the same time, I like the idea of having a larger screen in that form factor, especially a 13.3-inch screen. I've got iPads and I've got other tablets, I've got other Chromebooks around, and but that size screen is a really nice piece of real estate for having a touch screen to be able to type at. And again, I'm still deciding on what my fall laptop purchase is going to be, and the Duet might be one part of my purchases.
Well, you make a really important point. When I wrote the iPad only book with Michael Selinsky, that time was when the iPad mini came into the market. Okay. And I always thought the 9.7 or the 10.1 for that matter, it's a great size, but and my machine of choice was the iPad mini. And when the 12.9 came, I was really curious, and I'm really glad. And I still have both. I have a mini and I have a 12.9. But the reality is my main driver is that one. Because as the 10.1 is too big now to be really super portable, but too small to be the thing that I look all day, the 12.9, the 13 inches, it is perfect for that. So I can work in this all day. And when I'm done, I can just grab the mini and run and be effective if I need to be effective, but I don't need to sacrifice real estate.
Yeah, I find myself really liking. So I have a 10.1-inch iPad, and I find myself gravitating toward the 10-inch screen size for both the Duet and the iPad. Whenever I just want a tablet to be able to read on, and I just want to open it up and read something, and I'm not near my Kindle, which is either by my bedside or where I read in the house. And so it ends up being that kind of intermediary device for me to be able to do those things. And so I like that size, but absolutely throughout the day, I'm on much larger screens, right? So I've got plenty of huge monitors in front of me throughout the day that having that kind of smaller screen size like the 13.3 inch is big enough, but it's a nice size to be able to go. My last laptop was a 13.3 inch laptop, and so I feel comfortable being in that size for travel purposes. And it's big enough that it's going to give you enough screen real estate to work on, but small enough that you can slip it into a bag and run. And so I think that's going to be a really nice new size, and giving you options between which ones you'll use and which ones you won't for those purposes. All right. On to our next story, Augusto.
Our next story is how to install Cursive. And we have talked about Cursive here on the show already. Is the new Google for Chromebook handwriting, and it works on the web. And I have Cursive already, Google for not letting me test this on my iPad. Okay. I have a Chromebook, but I don't have the pencil. Yeah, I can do the finger. That's not what I want to try. One of the reasons I was really excited about it was because this could be the solution to have really universal handwriting. Bring it to the iPad, bring it to the Mac, and see my notes in there, open in the Chromebook, open in the Windows. And I was so excited about it. But as of right now, there is no way to run that PWA in the iPad. I can run it in the Mac. I can cheat and run it in the Mac, but I cannot run it in the iPad. That obviously is where my pencil is. So still, if you want to test it, here is how you can test it. You will see the link. The announcement initially said that was going to be only available for the HP Chromebook X2, but you can install it, you can play. We have played with it, and it works really well.
Yeah. So if you go to cursive.apps.chrome, you will be able to spin up Cursive and play with it. You have to have a touchscreen device, so that you can be able to utilize it. But I think it's great. I think eventually, this will hopefully make its way to more platforms, and that'll be a good thing for everybody. All right, on to our next and final story in the tech headlines.
Google One adds 5 terabyte of a storage plan for $24.99
USD. You got
USD.
it.
Yes, USD.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I need more than 2 terabytes, but still, it made me think how much we have increased all this, because 5 terabytes of data, okay, used to sound as something when are we going to?
Impossible. Impossible at some point.
It was
right?
impossible. Correct. Okay, I am on the 144 megabyte, okay, floppy disk. Okay,
You got it.
I remember when you could get double of that, and it was like, and now we have devices coming with 1 terabyte of memory on the device, and it's not crazy. And my iPad has 512. So I get it that the 5 terabyte is not insane. I still look at it and I was like, wow, that is insane.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the idea is that if you have 3 terabytes of data in your plan, you would have to be on the 10 terabyte plan right now, which is, again, $49.99 USD per month. And so now you can go to the 5 terabyte plan and you're only paying $25 per month, which is a huge cost savings annually if you don't need 10 terabytes of data in your plan. And so I find this to be an appropriate move for Google One to provide this intermediary plan between the 2 terabyte and 10 terabyte plan. And I'm presuming it's going to be similar to the other plans in the sense that you could pay for 2 terabytes at, I think it's whatever, $9.99 per month, $10 a month, or $100 per year. I'm presuming then, I'm hoping that Google One then charges $25 per month or $250 per year, so you get that cost savings on the annual plan.
That would be correct. Yeah.
So, and I think the same thing happens with the 10 terabyte plan, having the annual price give you that basically 2 months free for buying the annual plan. So, I think that's a great cost savings for folks who don't need 10 terabytes per year in terms of space. And remember also that you can have everyone in your household in the Google household, in the Google they're called families. In the Google family, utilize the same Google One plan, so you can include them in it. So it's not just your data; it could be everybody collectively together in one Google One plan.
And that's in our household. How we get to the terabytes level was as soon as my daughter begin taking pictures.
Which is good. It's so wonderful. Like I look back at my Google Photos and it's like, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because I've uploaded all of my photos from all of my history. And folks who are watching don't know this, but I just recently got a new niece, and she is being born into the year 2021, where her entire life will be photographed digitally, right? And not that she's the first child for that to be the case, but we've been in that space where children are growing up in a digital environment, and everything they are doing is digital. They need the space.
It's not too late for you to go retro. I'm happy to send you a camera with a film and all the liquids so you can develop in your house if that's going to make you happy and productive.
Not going to happen for me, but I am very happy to know that we are capable of storing all of this data in a way that will survive for many generations to be able to consume it and see and have that family history tracked and passed along. All right, this brings us to the end of our tech stories for the week and on to our productivity resources of the week. And so, of course, every week, Augusto and I cull the interwebs for all the stories that we are sharing about productivity and technology. And so in productivity resources of the week, we share productivity resources we think you might like. And so this week we have two as usual, and here they are. So my first one is called Fibery. And so I chose Fibery because Fibery is really interesting in so many different ways. But the most important and interesting thing is that they have this Fibery versus X section of the product. And I think this is the best way to describe what Fibery is, by basically showing you what Fibery isn't compared to other products on the market. And so they created these really fun little drawings where they've shown different graphs to show where they overlap in terms of work management or knowledge management or project management or otherwise. And so you can see here they've shown this little this color map, and they show where ClickUp and Fibery overlap, right? So there's a lot of overlap in the work management space, but Fibery does a little bit more over on this side regarding small business or small team knowledge management, and a little more in the work management side for medium-sized companies. You can see here that Fibery versus AHA, it shows you how it manages. I don't know what even AHA is, but and then over here it shows how Coda is really all about handling and managing mobile application document management, and how Fibery and Coda overlap each other here, and where Fibery really takes the majority of work management, process management kind of stuff on the top of the chart there. So it's this really flexible tool that allows you to be able to do work management that is project management of some kind, task management, collaboration within that environment, and also some level of knowledge management for your organization, so that you can keep track of both of those pieces to move forward with it. And so it's a really interesting application. It doesn't quite work for everyone. It is for kind of the small to medium-sized business. So it's in that space in terms of ecosystem. But if you're a business and you're looking for a way to take all of that knowledge work that's being done and to put it into a repository and then make it actionable, Fibery may be something that works for your company. So just wanted to put that on people's radars. Augusto, what is your tool this week? Productivity resource this week?
My productivity resource is a software called AnyFont. And I hear a lot of people when they work on the iPad complaining about, oh, I don't have this, especially on corporate environments. Okay, when you are now required to use that beautiful Times New Roman, okay, that nobody likes, but you are required to, and it's a standard, and people get frustrated. So AnyFont is one of those applications that you can download. You will find a ridiculous amount of fonts, including that awful Times New Roman, and you will be able to add it to your iPad. You will be able to install almost any kind of font, and now you are not going to get that error of mistake, the font is missing and all that. You will download the profile, activate the profile, and now you will be able to use any kind of font in your iPad.
Fantastic. Sounds like fun. I know that probably doesn't speak to many of the application providers out there who are trying to manage fonts on a completely different level, but I like the idea of being able to do so. All right, those are our productivity resources this week, and that takes us along, Augusto, to our final story of the week.
Complicated story of the week, because last every week we come into, okay, what is going to be the more story, the feature story, what we're going to discuss. And last week Google bombarded us with news, and instead of trying to pick one, we decided, okay, you know what, let's go and talk about Google this week. I think that will be the way to go. So let's begin with the first one, and it's Google Meets gets a new hardware. And you can now be interactive. There are going to be massive boards you can hang up in your office. There are, I think it's 27 inches.
The first one is a 27-inch display, the Series 1 desk, and then there's the board, which is a 65-inch display.
65-inch, correct. And now you will be able to get and do your Google Meets and have all that. I am particularly excited about it. I think, this is great, especially if your business lives in Google Meet. I don't know what's going to happen with these massive things when you need to go to another provider. Most likely that's not going to be an option. But still, I think it's cool to see these boards coming into the offices and into the boards, into the meetings. They're more and more the corporate environment, it's split in two. Okay, you are going to be a Microsoft home or you're going to have a Google home, and they are really equivalent in what they can do and what they can do good. So I'm excited to see these kind of things.
Well, yeah. So these were built in partnership with Avocor, and they are actually WebEx compatible. So for those who are in the Cisco environment, Google Meet and Cisco WebEx are working together to make sure that they are interoperable, which is pretty phenomenal, right? Just giving that kind of interoperability. The Series 1 Desk 27 is also a laptop docking station. So this really helps when you want to be able to go into a conference room environment and you are in an enterprise environment. I mean, this really felt like Google scratching its own itch, right? They are dealing with these issues of hybrid work, people coming back and forth between in-office and remote, and they wanted to be able to create this level of connection for people and collaboration for people. And so the 65-inch is the one that is replacing their Jamboard hardware. So it has Jamboard built into it, the software built into it, while giving Google Meet and other capabilities from WebEx in that environment. And so I think really great that Google is providing this new technology and hardware for the Google ecosystem, and good on them for doing so. All right, next up.
Our next one is Google renaming Rooms in Chat and Gmail to Spaces. All that is underway. You're going to start seeing, the mail, the chat, the spaces, the rooms, and really trying to make a one-stop shop, where you come, where you see your email, where you see the announcements, where you see all this. So this is really interesting to see and coming. So,
well, I think what I'm finding fascinating is the different approaches that the various companies have chosen to angle themselves toward as it relates to the future of remote work as well as hybrid work. So Microsoft, you can see, chose to build Teams and then to start caking parts of Teams, parts of the Microsoft 365 environment into the Teams environment. And for the most part, they have kept Outlook completely and fundamentally separate from Teams, right? You have some capabilities within Outlook to connect to Teams, but in essence, Microsoft Teams and Outlook are two islands unto themselves, and they ship each other data back and forth. Whereas what Google has decided is that in whatever landscape you're in, whatever canvas you're in, you're just going to have the capability of accessing these pieces. And so Gmail has become the primary canvas in which they have, as I said earlier, caked in these other parts. So Google Chat, Google Calendar, Google Tasks, Spaces, all of these pieces are being put into the Gmail environment. And, likewise, they're being put into Google Calendar. And you're seeing more of these pieces being put into Docs, Sheets, and Slides. And so the components that you need for collaboration are being put together into these very smart, modular areas within the interface, no matter which one of them you have open. And I think it's very interesting just to see the two and the differing approaches that Microsoft and Google are making as it relates to productivity software. And we'll be curious to see which one wins, quote unquote. But I think it's a unique position to be watching this happen in front of us, right? In this very, very dramatic environment that we're in, dramatic change considering the environment we're in, where we went from barely anyone, remote working full time to everyone all of a sudden working, not everyone, but most people working remotely full time, and having to see the technology really catch up and merge and morph to match that. All right.
So our next news was Google Workplace, buying or acquiring PlaySpace, and they have been confirmed that they are in an agreement to buy. And the startup basically was trying to make, the work into bringing everything to the one platform. And again, it's that movement Google is bringing into, okay, now that you're in a browser and you can be anywhere, and I think this is the reason it's strong, is if you can open this app or this web browser, you are going to have your whole corporate world in there. So it's interesting what is coming.
Yeah, I found a couple of things really fascinating about PlaySpace. One, I didn't even know it existed, which is I just didn't know it existed, which is remarkable that it's been running this entire time. It is phenomenal in so many ways, and so I'm really sad because as soon as Google bought them, they shut off your ability to sign up for new accounts. I'm not sure whether this is an acqui-hire or whether this is for the actual technology inside of PlaySpace that they're trying to bundle into Workspace. This is really fascinating. I mean, we have Personal Productivity Club and the co-working space, and I think of how PlaySpace could be that co-working space. Just it's a brilliant interface where you can very seamlessly bring people in and out of it. And there are other technologies that are trying to do this. And I have to admit, someone who's been paying very close attention to this technology space, no one particular tool is hitting all the marks yet. And so PlaySpace is really unique in that regard because it's doing really some fun things. Just to poke fun at it though, they of course are acquired by Google, and all of their demos are shown inside of Apple Safari on a Mac OS platform. So not sure what that's all about. But Google still acquired them, so good on them and congratulations.
Yeah, that is not going to last long, but hey, that's what it is.
No. All right, on to our next component of
our next
Google
article
stories.
is another component is, hey, the Gmail app takes now calls. So you can also do calls. You can do the Meet for a while. And again, it's what we were discussing. It's one more tool. That was the reason it was difficult to pick one, because really what they did was a series of announcements of how they're adding components to this Gmail app and how you're going to be able to do the chat and the spaces and everything else. And I wonder if this is from the perspective, the productivity perspective, if this is a good call or not, and people will do better with multiple applications. That said, even on the iPad, you can multitask so well that I see more people having the screen and the calendar and the email open in a split view more than anything else. So I don't doubt that you will be able to use this application to be a really modern structure where everything gets in there. So we will need to see again. But as you said, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to say, I think this is a making of whole of Gmail when they took away a feature and now they're finally bringing it back. You used to be able to make phone calls from within Gmail from Hangouts, and I would like to see them tie Google Voice back to the ecosystem so that you're capable of making those phone calls. I don't know that this is not the case, but I'm really hoping that it is, which is that my Google Voice account, which is my primary phone number for the world, I want it to be tied back to my Gmail account. It's tied to my Google account, of course, but I want it to be tied to my Gmail so that when I do make an outbound phone call, it's calling from me, as it should be. And so this is a really fascinating component to be added back into the system. And it's just adding back a feature that they took away some time ago because they were deprecating and sunsetting the Hangouts application. So now that chat is back, now that they're bringing calls back to the system, I feel gratified that Gmail is now whole again. To your point about the environment, today I see myself utilizing Gmail with the Google Calendar open in the sidebar almost exclusively all the time. And that's my work email and my work calendar. And I've just found those two side by side to be very, very happily residing next to each other in the interface. And that's been really useful. So I can see how all of these pieces for Gmail kind of getting the pieces together. And so just to give further kind of detail here, I keep my left-hand sidebar open, my navigation open in Gmail, so I can see my chats from Google Chat, my rooms, which will now become spaces, down there as well. And then on my right-hand side, I have my calendar open. And so in essence, I have this dashboard of everything that I need from that perspective. So
I think that's what they're trying to build.
Yeah, and honestly, it's been working really well. You know, I can answer messages back and forth between staff as they have questions for me. I can read and respond to email as they're coming in, and I can see how the items are affecting my calendar, because if I wanted to, I could just click on add it as a task, and then that task, if I add a time associated with it, will then get docked into the calendar for view. So, and if I wanted to see just my tasks generally, I click on the task icon. You see the tasks drop down in the right-hand side drawer. So there's some really smart work they're doing there inside of that ecosystem, and I hope that they do the same thing in Google Calendar and in other places, so that no matter what you choose as your primary viewpoint, you're seeing the other pieces there to be able to interact with and to get things done, because it's really a highly productive environment. All right, on to our final component of the featured stories of the week is that Google is debuting more Meet features. What the primary one is companion mode. And so what do you know about companion mode, Augusto?
Not much. I read about it, and I didn't understood exactly what they were trying to do. So you may need to go on you to share with us what is this companion mode. I couldn't understand the excitement about it. So
yeah, so companion mode is basically the ability for you to in essence bring different pieces of your working environment into the video experience. So it's they've been talking about this for some time now, but the idea here is that inside Google Meet, users will be able to host and join a meeting from within a conference room, and these companion mode components will allow those things to extend very easily into those in-person meetings. Again, the idea is to kind of bridge the gap between those who are in person and those people who are virtual. And so you can, in companion mode, share physical presentations, but basically presentations up on a screen into the Google Meet. You can handle audio reverb, so that if you're all in a room together and you have, say, a speakerphone that is capturing the audio, you're not getting the audio reverb into it. And as well, you can then have meeting chat, you can have whiteboard, you can have all those components caked right into the screen that's presenting to the room, but also to the people who are in the Meet. And so this is bridging that piece. That's why they're calling it companion mode, right? It's basically the in-between technology that's handling those people who are in person and those people who are virtual, and it's bringing those two pieces together. The first step to that, of course, was the ability for you to be inside of Google Slides, Google Docs, and otherwise, and sharing that document live to a meeting. And so you can collaborate live, but also see the same screen together while you're inside of a Google Meet. Now they're taking that to the next level, which is bringing that into the hardware, like the Series 1 desk and the Series 1 board, 65-inch. So that technology is now, you're going to see the Google Meet and everything that's happening in the meeting up on the screen. Everybody in person is going to see it, but they're also able to interact and engage with that stuff that's happening on screen together with the people who are in the room. And there's that little component of like, okay, when there's a bunch of people in the room, how do you deal with the conference technology? Well, the conference software will now work so that you can capture everybody's voices without there being a lot of echoing back and forth. So if I have my laptop open and I'm in the Google Meet and my microphone is active, it's going to capture that. It's going to know that, and it's going to cancel out my audio so that you don't get that screeching in your ears when we've all been there now, where it's the echoing and the echoing of people's microphones. So that all is basically what companion mode is doing for you, and I think it's really sophisticated software, and I'm really curious to see it in real life. I'm not in many environments where I'm going to need to do that, but in an enterprise
that's maybe
world,
the reason I'm not into a lot of environments that is critical for me. So
yeah, but I will see this in a lot of my enterprise client spaces. I think this is going to be a real advantage for them in being able to bring people back and not feel like people are forced into coming back, because they now have the flexibility of doing it in both places. All right, that brings us to the end of our featured stories of this week and on to our announcements. Augusto, what are our announcements?
So we have 5 announcements. Jeez. The first one is tomorrow, 9/14, the September 14. Apple is going to be doing their special event, California Streaming, and therefore the next day on the 15th, we are going to do a special event, or anything but adult 080. So, and we are going to have here Michael Slewinski, and we are going to be talking about that. So we're going to be live at noon Eastern time.
For those of you who don't know, Michael, although Augusto mentioned him earlier, Michael is the CEO of Noseby and Noseby Teams. So Michael will be joining us for the special Apple episode. Very excited.
Perfect. And then on the next week, on the 22nd of September, Microsoft is doing a special event. So the next day, the 23rd of September, we are going to do another special episode on Anything But Idle, 82, with Art Gelwicks, who is our expert in all this Microsoft. So we are going to, and it's also going to be at noon. So there are going to be 2 times to come and geek out and have fun. And the last announcement, it's a sad announcement for me, is Lowcast was shutting down after losing their court battle with the TV networks. That is sad. No, I don't watch TV, but still, I think they were trying to do something nice, bring it into, for those people who don't have cable anymore. And, well, the cables win.
Yeah, or if you were, so Lowcast basically provided your local television stations through the internet, and in essence, the court, while the court didn't really decide against Lowcast, it really did disrupt their ability to charge money for the platform. So they could have continued operating as a nonprofit for free, but the fact that they were charging is what actually caused the court to say you can't charge. And this all comes down to the various licensing fees that are being paid to these various cable channels and otherwise or carriers. But it's absolute rubbish. This should be legislated out of existence. Something needs to be done here. We should be able to consume on whatever device we want, in whatever way we want, in whatever region we want. And the true mission of the internet was to be able to democratize information, to be able to allow all of us access to everyone else and all the data on the World Wide Web. And unfortunately, we're in a place where we are really seeing the splinternet. We are seeing different countries section off or cordon off parts of the internet from other parts, most notably China, and we have other countries in the Middle East who have chosen to cordon that off. Russia has done so as well, and so this is dangerous, I think, for an open democratic world. And not that we are a democratic world, but that is kind of the ideal. At least from my worldview. And we have the problem now of various laws being utilized to penalize bringing what should be free to people. Say you live just outside of a metropolitan area and you want to be able to access your regional television news. You can't do that because Lowcast no longer can do that by charging a fee just to keep the platform up and running. So it is sad. It is a sad day, I think, for everybody who wants access to things that they should have freely accessible to them. So anyway, I digress, but I'm sad about it.
I think it's sad. So anyways, and we have other news if you just go and check our notes.
Fantastic. And with that, we've covered the productivity and technology related news for this week. Thank you, Augusto, for helping to put together Anything But Idle this and every week.
It's my pleasure, as always.
All right, everybody. If we missed something, first go over to anythingbutidle.com/079, and there you'll find our show notes with links to all the stories we covered, our productivity resources of the week, and the extra stories section that Augusto just mentioned. If for some reason in the extra stories section there's a missing story that you think we should have covered, feel free to head over to our contact page, or you can comment directly on the episode page and let us know about that story. We're happy to cover it in a future episode or otherwise. Also on that episode page is our text transcripts. We have a machine-generated transcript that's provided, one that's readable right on the page. Just click on the Read More link. It'll expand, and you can read along while you listen to or watch the show. And then there is a download link below that, and that allows you to download it as a PDF and take offline so you can read it alongside the show or otherwise. If this is your first time watching the live stream, feel free to click the subscribe button. Also, feel free to click the thumbs up icon. That really helps to, the folks who are watching or are going to watch us know that, you enjoyed it and that may be something they enjoy as well. If you're listening to the podcast show, feel free to subscribe to the podcast. That will, of course, get you to follow us, but also get the episodes downloaded for free every week when we do put them out. There are instructions there on anythingbutidle.com if you have any questions. So if you just click on that subscribe tab on anythingbutidle.com, it'll explain to you how to subscribe if you don't know how to. And please feel free to rate and review us in Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or wherever you might be able to review us and rate us. There are tons of other platforms that allow for that now, Podchaser and Listen Notes and other places where you can do that. Either way, your compliments help us. Obviously, it gives us joy to hear that you're doing well, but also it gives signals out there to the podcast gods that we're doing the right things. And that, of course, expands our personal productivity listening community. And so thank you for doing that. With that, we will see you all next time on Anything But Idle. Here's to your productive life.